They told us Neanderthals were a failure, an evolutionary dead end, extinct, forgotten, buried in Ice Age dust 40,000 years ago. But what if they didn't vanish? What if their bones crumbled, but their blood survived? In 2010, a single fragment of thigh bone, dug from Vindija Cave in Croatia, shattered everything we thought we knew. From that bone, Svante Pääbo and his team at the Max Planck Institute pulled off the impossible. They resurrected a genome. Not a myth, not a reconstruction, the actual DNA code of a Neanderthal, strand by strand, base by base. And what they found was us. Not all of us, but most of us. Today, 1 to 4% of the DNA in every non-African human is Neanderthal. That means if you're European, Asian, Indigenous American, parts of your body, your brain, your voice, are not fully Homo sapiens. You are the descendant of a hybrid species. A collision between two human worlds, one that survived and one that never really died. Neanderthal DNA shapes your immunity, your skin's ability to tan, your body's reaction to disease, your sleep, your stress, even your emotions. In 2020, a specific Neanderthal gene on chromosome 3 was linked to COVID-19 severity, an ancient curse from a forgotten ancestor. Another segment protects against HIV, and another still may shape how you dream. This isn't prehistory. This is your biology. So ask yourself, if your genes carry voices 40,000 years old, whose story are you really living? And here's the twist no one prepared for. The deeper scientists dig into our genome, the less we look like a single species. So maybe we didn't replace the Neanderthals. Maybe we absorbed them. Maybe we still are them. And maybe extinction was just a story we told ourselves. Because what happens next isn't about the fossils we found. It's about the ones still breathing. But what if the most important fossil wasn't even human? In 2018, a 2-centimeter fragment of long bone emerged from the sediments of Denisova Cave, Siberia. It looked ordinary, blank, almost dismissible. But then came the shock. This wasn't Homo sapiens. This wasn't Neanderthal. It was both. The girl was just 13 years old. Her mitochondrial DNA pointed clearly to a Neanderthal mother, but her nuclear genome? That told a different story. Her father was Denisovan, another archaic human lineage that split from Neanderthals over 400,000 years ago. They called her Denny. And she wasn't a myth. She was genomic proof of deep interbreeding between species we once thought never met. Her DNA was sequenced to 2.6x coverage, rare, but clear. A first-generation hybrid, the first ever found. But Denny's existence wasn't an accident. The sediment layers in Denisova Cave show that Neanderthals, Denisovans, and modern humans all used this cave at different times, sometimes separated by just centuries. The deeper layers, dating over 250,000 years, hold tools, fire ash, bone, silent remnants of 3 species coexisting in the same icy corridor. And Denny, she proved they didn't just coexist. They were touched. They created life. Their bloodlines fused, and their genes continued. Some Denisovan DNA today helps Tibetans survive high altitudes. Other fragments influence immune responses across Southeast Asia. This wasn't a single event. Genome data shows it happened again and again. So now, the story of human ancestry doesn't read like a tree. It reads like a braid. 3 lineages, thousands of years, and one cave that connected them all. But if their genes merged, if species boundaries were broken, then what else, besides DNA, did they pass on? Maybe the answer is staring back at you in the mirror. Because the Neanderthals didn't just pass on fragments of genome, they passed on traits. Real, physical, biological fingerprints. Still active today. Take your immune system. If you carry the Neanderthal variants of the genes TLR6, TLR1, or TLR10, you might be better protected against certain bacterial infections. Those genes boost pathogen recognition. They make your immune response faster, stronger, more ancient. But that protection comes at a cost. Other Neanderthal genes are linked to allergies, to hay fever, even autoimmune conditions. It's like evolution left us battle armor, lined with barbed wire. Then there's your skin. Neanderthal DNA affects pigmentation. hair thickness, even how your skin handles sunlight. In colder climates, that might have been a blessing. But today, it could raise your risk for keratosis or even certain cancers. An Ice Age legacy, now out of sync with modern skies. And the mind, it wasn't untouched either. Some Neanderthal gene segments correlate with mood disorders, depression, nicotine dependence, even how long you sleep. Which begs a haunting question. Is your anxiety yours? Or is it a fear older than civilization? And what about language? The FOXP2 gene, long tied to speech and vocal learning, shows signs of ancient Neanderthal activity. They may have spoken, thought in symbols, whispered names to their children, just like us. So here's the contradiction. A species once labeled dumb brutes now turns out to be a quiet architect of who we are, physically, emotionally, neurologically. But this inheritance isn't all a gift, because some of what we carry feels less like legacy and more like scars. And those scars, they may have come from a woman you've never heard of, but whose DNA still lives in millions of people today. She has no name, no grave, but she lived 120,000 years ago in the frozen highlands of Siberia. Her remains were nothing more than a tiny bone, a piece of finger, found deep inside Denisova cave. But this fragment held a miracle. In 2010, scientists at the Max Planck Institute sequenced her entire genome at 30x coverage, one of the highest fidelity ancient genomes ever completed. And what it revealed was haunting. This woman, now known as the Altai Neanderthal, was part of an isolated population with shockingly high levels of inbreeding. Her parents were closely related, possibly half-siblings or even uncle and niece. She lived alone in a genetic bottleneck, a bloodline cut off from the wider world. Yet somehow that line endured, because up to 20% of her genome still exists, scattered in small pieces, across billions of living people today. Not as a whole, but in fragments. Like a shattered mirror, her DNA was broken and passed forward, piece by piece, across continents and centuries. She wasn't royalty. She wasn't famous. But she's become part of us. And her genetic echoes tell a chilling story. That early humans weren't always mighty survivors. Sometimes they were fragile, endangered. Just one illness, one storm, one winter away from vanishing forever. Yet somehow she didn't vanish. She became many. So the next time you wonder where you come from, remember this. Some part of you may be carrying the voice of an Ice Age woman who lived, died, and never knew her story would outlive time itself. But if she made it this far, how many other voices from the Ice Age still echo through your veins? Maybe some of them don't even have names, because in the genome, silence speaks. Inside the DNA of modern South Asians, Melanesians, and other populations across the globe, scientists have found ancient genetic fragments. They look Neanderthal, but they don't match any known Neanderthal fossil we've ever studied. No bone, no tooth, no skull, just shadows in the code, ghost genes. In the 2010 to 2018 comparative sequencing studies, geneticists found that some Neanderthal segments in South Asian and Melanesian genomes are deeply divergent, far enough to suggest they came from unknown Neanderthal populations or even other hominin groups entirely. A branch of humanity that left no footprint, except in us. The genomes hint that there may have been more diversity among Neanderthals than once believed. Maybe not just one type, but regional variations, East Eurasian Neanderthals, Altai-adapted ones, even lost hybrid groups that left behind no fossil trail. And what's even stranger, these ghost segments contain functional genes, influencing immunity, metabolism, even brain development. That means they're not just leftovers. They matter. They shaped us. But if the genes exist, where are the bodies? What if entire populations, whole species, were absorbed, erased, remembered only in fragments of skin color, sleep cycles, or serotonin pathways? It's a haunting truth. The fossil record is loud with bones, but the genome whispers secrets we never expected. There may be ancestors we never dug from the earth. They are in your blood, but not in any museum. And when science looks closer, we don't just find answers. We find absence. The kind of absence that makes you wonder, what if the greatest species we've lost, we never even saw? Maybe they're still inside us. Not in bone, not in blood, but in thought. Because what modern MRI reconstruction revealed about Neanderthal brains changes everything. These weren't lesser minds. They were different architectures. According to modeling of Neanderthal endocranial shapes, their occipital and parietal lobes, controlling visual processing and spatial awareness, were significantly enlarged compared to ours. That means they may have seen the world, not just differently, but deeper, sharper in movement, quicker in the body's map of space and threat. Their prefrontal regions, those tied to complex reasoning and social navigation, were smaller. But who's to say what's more advanced? What if theirs was a mind tuned to survival, not society? And here's the twist. That brain didn't die. Fragments of Neanderthal neurogenetics remain active in modern humans today. Studies show that certain Neanderthal alleles regulate chronotype, the body's internal clock. European populations show strong links between Neanderthal DNA and early waking tendencies, circadian rhythm stability, even seasonal light adaptation. Your sleep habits may have been forged under Ice Age stars, but it doesn't stop there. Genes linked to pain sensitivity, cortisol regulation, and even neuroplasticity have Neanderthal origins. Some variants affect your stress response, making you more reactive, more alert, maybe even more empathetic in threat. Which means, when your heart races in silence, when memory plays louder than logic, when instinct shouts over thought, that might not be your fear. It could be theirs. A reflex burned into the nervous system of an extinct species, and now inherited by the living. So tell me, if parts of their brain still fire on your own, then how many thoughts are truly yours? And if their mind lives on inside us, what other instincts, what buried voices, are waiting to wake? Maybe it begins with how they said goodbye. In the late 1950s, deep in Iraq's Shanidar cave, archaeologists uncovered something impossible: the skeleton of a Neanderthal adult male, now known as Shanidar 4. He was surrounded by concentrated clusters of pollen, wildflowers, buried with him in the soil. At first, it was dismissed: contamination, maybe modern rodents. But the pattern was too consistent, too deliberate. In 2020, a reanalysis confirmed what many had quietly suspected. The burial was intentional, the pollen real, the symbolism unmistakable. A Neanderthal grave, with flowers. If this is true, it's not just a body in the ground. It's a farewell. It means they felt the loss, marked the passing, prepared the body, not just practically, but emotionally. This wasn't survival. This was ritual. And now, from France to northern Spain, new infant burials have surfaced. Neanderthal children laid gently in protected spaces, some with pigment, some in sleeping positions, all showing care. Graves, not pits. This changes everything. It implies memory, emotion, even belief. Were they praying, honoring, hoping? Did they believe in an afterlife, or simply couldn't bear to let go? Either way, they weren't just creatures surviving the Ice Age. They were grieving it. They carried their dead with meaning, the way we still do. And that raises the most haunting question of all. Were Neanderthals not just human, but sacred to their own? Perhaps their reverence for the dead was also a warning to the living, because what they buried in ritual, we carry in code. In 2020, in the middle of a global pandemic, a forgotten ghost from the Ice Age resurfaced, not in a cave, but in a lab. Geneticist Hugo Zeeberg and Svante Pääbo published a shocking discovery in Nature. A stretch of DNA on chromosome 3, inherited from Neanderthals, was linked to more than twice the risk of severe COVID-19 symptoms. Not in everyone, just in those who carry this ancient haplotype, mostly people from Bangladesh, India, and southern Europe. This single region, just 50 kilobases long, had outlived its time. Once, it protected Neanderthals against prehistoric viral threats. Now, it's a ticking time bomb in a modern immune system. But here's where it gets stranger. That same Neanderthal haplotype is almost non-existent in African populations, who don't share Neanderthal ancestry, which means this legacy of pain, this vulnerability to modern viruses, is a direct consequence of Ice Age interbreeding. And yet, not all inherited genes have betrayed us. Other Neanderthal sequences enhance our immune response to pathogens, including TLR6, TLR1 and TLR10, crucial for recognizing bacterial invaders. Another variant affects the OAS1 enzyme system, helping cells detect and degrade viral RNA, a line of defense against HIV and hepatitis C. Even pain sensitivity and the type of sleep we get, still influenced by Neanderthal alleles. This isn't ancestry. It's immunological memory, a record of every ancient plague they endured, encoded inside us like genetic scripture. Our bodies aren't just shaped by natural selection. They're haunted by natural disasters. The genes that once bought us time are now running out of it. Because if our immunity is built on borrowed bones, then what other forgotten instructions are still firing unseen? What happens when the next virus meets the DNA of the dead? Because some DNA doesn't just survive. Some DNA gets deleted. Hidden inside our modern genome, there's a quiet act of violence, a slow unraveling, not of war or extinction, but of erasure. Out of the tens of thousands of genes Neanderthals passed on through interbreeding, most are gone, especially the ones tied to male fertility. A 2017 study from the Max Planck Institute found that Neanderthal Y chromosome genes were almost completely purged from modern humans. Why? Because those genes, involved in testis development, sperm function, and male-specific immunity, were toxic to hybrid offspring. They disrupted the delicate balance of fertility between two species that weren't supposed to mix. So evolution intervened, not with sword and fire, but with silence. Natural selection clipped away what didn't fit. It carved out the incompatible. And what was left was us. Our bodies became curators. We kept what worked, immune defenses like TLR, metabolic traits for fat storage in colder climates, and skin tone genes like BNC2 for ultraviolet regulation. But the rest? The emotional circuits, the sensory signatures, maybe even unique Neanderthal instincts, quietly phased out, generation by generation. This wasn't just survival. This was genomic editing on an ancestral scale. And the results are chilling. Because today, modern humans carry less than 2% Neanderthal DNA each. But collectively, across the species, we carry around 40% of the full Neanderthal genome, scattered, fragmented, anonymized. No single person is Neanderthal, but all of us together are the broken mirror of a people once whole. What does it mean to be the editors of our own extinction? What does it mean to erase someone from within? And if we could remove their code, what parts of us go with it? But more terrifying, what happens when you try to bring them back? In 2013, George Church, Harvard's real-life Dr. Frankenstein, stunned the world. He claimed we could resurrect Neanderthals, not metaphorically, not digitally, biologically, in flesh. The idea: use the full Neanderthal genome, sequenced from ancient bones, then edit a human embryo, cell by cell, using CRISPR. Not for show, for birth. Scientists scoffed. Ethicists panicked. But in the silence that followed, someone kept working. By 2018, researchers had already inserted Neanderthal genes into human brain cells, creating mini organoids that pulsed with primitive electrical signals. Neural fire from a being extinct for 40,000 years. And then came something stranger. At Denisova Cave, 100,000 years of silence suddenly cracked. No bones, no tools, no skulls, just dust. But in that dust, sediment DNA revealed Neanderthal breath, skin flakes, blood fragments, invisible to the naked eye, yet screaming through genome scanners. Neanderthals hadn't vanished from Earth. They were smeared across it, like fingerprints on forgotten glass. And now, we're not just finding them, we're editing them, engineering their traits into immune systems, neural pathways, even fertility. Not to remember them, to use them. But here's the question that science can't sequence. If we put their genes back into bodies, do we resurrect memory or awaken trauma? What does it mean to revive the mind of an extinct species inside our own? We erase their bones from history. But if we give them faces again, whose eyes will look back at us? And what if the next face we see isn't entirely human? What if it already is? Because the truth no one told us in school is that Neanderthals never truly vanished. They didn't go extinct. They transformed. They folded into our bones, whispered into our blood, not as ghosts, but as grandparents. In 2020, researchers mapped out something chilling. Neanderthal DNA is not just scattered, it's strategic. Our immune system, boosted by their fire-hardened genes. Skin tone, fat storage, even sleep cycles. Their adaptations became our survival. But not all gifts were blessings. Some carry shadows. Autoimmune diseases, depression, even vulnerability to modern pandemics. So who are we? Not Homo sapiens. Not Neanderthals. We are the fusion, the aftermath, the living memory of a vanished people, carved into genome, layered in silence. Think of Denny, the 13-year-old girl from Denisova, half Neanderthal, half Denisovan, a child of ancient worlds, erased before names were written. Yet her bloodline threads through ours, and she had no idea she was history. And then there's us. We debate their extinction like it's a chapter in a dusty textbook, but we carry their fragments in every cell. Our story didn't replace theirs. It continued it. We didn't conquer the Neanderthals. We became them. We walk with their gait, breathe through their lungs, dream their forgotten dreams. And when we stare long enough into a mirror, behind the reflection, behind the flesh, somewhere in the dark grooves of bone and memory, you might feel it. Not absence, recognition. Because maybe the species we lost was the one staring back in the mirror,